Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the regular monthly meeting of the Arts and Culture Commission. Can we have the roll call, please?
Commissioners Terhovhanessian.
Here.
Gregorian.
Yes.
Lee.
Here.
Chairperson Kavanian.
Here.
For the record, Ms. Stever is absent. The agenda for the September 20th meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall on September 14th, 2012.
Next item, please.
Item 2, consent items. At A, approval of regular meeting minutes from August 16th, 2012.
I have a correction on page 10, where it says Commissioner Lee stated that to try and speed the process up, change it to that we would go straight to the 2012-2013 work plan. And then 3 sentences further, 2 sentences further, use the word quickly ahead instead of quick. And then the next item down, Commissioner Lee, the second sentence, whereas if they started off with a fresh mind, for example. Then page 12, only cut 1 or 2. Third item, Commissioner Lee, after 6 months to a year, take out the for even. And then the one after that, Commissioner Lee, and it says, because that's when, but that's what instead of when we have money in hand. Those are the only ones I see so far.
Is there a motion approving the minutes, or? Of course.
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes with my corrections.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
Commissioner Terhovhanessian.
Yes.
Gregorian.
I would like to abstain on this.
Lee.
Yes.
Chairperson Kavanian.
I'm going to abstain as well.
May I ask, are you abstaining because you were not present at the meeting?
No, I'm. Commissioner Ring, you want to go first?
No, I was present at the meeting.
Okay. If the two of you abstain, then the motion would fail because you would need 3 affirmative votes for the motion to pass. And with 2 abstentions and 2 yes votes, you would not have adequate votes to have the minutes pass. And what we could do is we could bring it back at the next meeting where you've had an opportunity to review it, or if you've got additional changes that you need to make, maybe we could do that at that time and bring it back.
That's fine with me.
Actually, I think that would be appropriate.
Okay. But in connection with the recording of the minutes, may be appropriate for us to point out at this point the length of the minutes. It is really uncommon for any commission in the city to have minutes in almost a transcribed form. It is staff intensive to record them. It is also intensive of your time because then you have to review them in great detail. It is more common in the city, both at the council and the overwhelming majority of the commissions, to record the action items. And it's done mostly because the meetings are televised and they're recorded. They're available on the web. Electronic copies are available upon demand. So really it's the action that you're trying to record and not necessarily the individual comments. So if there's no objection on the part of the commission, we can bring back those types of minutes in the future, and then that might help speed up your process a little bit.
Absolutely, and that's Commissioner Green.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Ms. Varpetian. One of the reasons that I abstained was just because of the length of the minutes. They are too lengthy, and there are so many issues in there, sometimes grammatical, sometimes context-wise, and when I was reading it, I kind of couldn't make a coherent decision on it. So the reason I'm abstaining is just that, because these minutes, the way they are written, were not what I could approve. And if you would like, and if somehow these are revised and made a lot concise and a lot more coherent and a lot more, grammatically and all the other ways correct, then I will have no problem in approving it. Because as you said, we know that the record of the minutes are in the tapes and all that, but as a written minutes, these are going to go into the archives of our Arts and Culture Commission, and I wouldn't like to see our archives to have minutes the way it has been written.
Okay, so then we will bring these minutes back, recording the action items from the previous meeting, and then we'll present it to you again at your next meeting.
I mean, that would be fine with me if my colleagues agree with that.
Would it be edited, or the same thing is going to come back?
No,
It'll
would-
come back in a shorter form.
Right.
Shorter form, good.
Right.
Okay. With the needed corrections.
But in the shorter form, hopefully the items that you're objecting to will not make its way into the...
Right.
And the grammatical and, kind of
Correct.
expressiveness of the sentence structure.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Next item, please.
Item 3, at A, presentation Library Art Contest for the 14th Annual Teen Read Week, October 14th through the 20th, 2012, presented by Kathy Billings, Art Librarian and Gallery Manager, and Melissa Stallings, Teen Librarian.
Hi, Commissioners. Good to see you. Thanks for having us. I'm Kathy Billings from the Brand Library, and this is Melissa Stallings. She's the teen librarian for the Glendale Public Library, and you may not have seen her before, so she'll be talking a little bit after I do about the program that she does at the library. The main thing we're here to talk to you today about is a contest that we're having for teens. It is an art contest related to literature. So teens are being asked to read a book and create a piece of art inspired by that book. If they submit it, it will be entered in a national contest that's being sponsored by the Young Adult Services Librarians, which is a national organization for teen librarians. And we're also having a local contest, and the grand prize is a $50 gift certificate from the Associates of Brand Library. They're sponsoring that prize very generously. The due date for entries for the national contest is September 28th, and the extended due date for the local contest is the 14th of October. So if students aren't able to get their piece in time for the 28th, they'll still be eligible for the contest that the Library Arts and Culture Department is hosting. And I think that that's all as far as the rules for that go. Obviously, more information on the website, which is www.glendaleteens.com. And we have flyers in all the libraries, flyers and posters in all the libraries. So encourage any teens you know or parents of teens to pick those up and get their students to participate.
The library's teen advisory group is helping to promote it too. There are kids, about 15 teens from throughout the city, who come to the meetings twice a month to get volunteer credit. They've done art projects in the past, like putting post-it note art up in the library. They plan displays. They help decide what books we're going to purchase. They were given the flyers this last week, and they're handing them out at their schools and to other artsy kids they know. So we're hoping that they help get the word out too about this really pretty cool contest.
And finally, the entries will be displayed at the Glendale Public Library in one of our display cases on the main level in October and November. And Teen Read Week is what this is all about, is October 14th through 20th. So that's the October-November timeframe that the works will be on display. That's it.
Wonderful.
I would like to commend Brand Library staff with kind of letting public know what is happening. The beautiful postcards that you send with all the activities and events that are on the way. They are beautiful, colorful, meaningful, and it's a pride and joy to receive or even to share with people in the community. Thank you very much.
Good. I'm glad that they're serving their purpose. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next item, please.
Good afternoon, Chairman Kivanian and commissioners and staff, library staff. It's nice to see everybody here. I have a number of events to tell you about at the libraries. This is basically a calendar. It's a little shot from our web page. Last night we had a great program with the Associates Brand Library presenting Women Art Revolution. They had a nice speaker. The associates, again, are associated with the Brand Library and Arts Center, and they are carrying on their work even though the Brand Library is closed for renovation. So we've seen some very good programs from them. We expect more. Of course, we have lots of authors at the library. Tonight, Sandy Tan's going to talk about her ghost stories. She's a filmmaker in Pasadena, and she's a self-described scaredy cat. She said, everyone had a ghost story but me, and I was determined that I would never have one. Naturally, when I sat down to write my first novel, it turned out to be a ghost story. So she draws on her background in Malaysia and China. On September 27th, we have a speaker, Antonio Arslan. She's going to talk about the road to Smyrna. We have book sales at the library at the end of this month, Friday, September 28th, and Saturday, September 29th. And if you're a Friends of the Library member, it's the Friends of the Library book sale, you get in an hour early. Okay? And on Friday, there are some Armenian language books for sale. So we have everything. We also have music at the library. Some of you are very interested in music. We've got a couple of woodwind quintets coming in, quartets, quintets. One called the Tri-City Woodwind Quintet, another one called Cuartos Amigos. They are going to perform, well, let's see, the Tri-City group will do their arrangements of pictures at an exhibition, some Hungarian dances, a variety, Mozart, Poulenc, really a wide-ranging bunch of musicians. The next group is a saxophone quartet. So they're going to throw out "Have You Met Miss Jones," a little Richard Rodgers tune, arranged by Lenny Niehaus. They've got some Mozart, some Duke Ellington. They've got a little bit of everything. I am looking forward to that. I think it'll be a good show. That's Tuesday, October 7th, again in our auditorium. And once again, it's a free program. The LA Opera Talks Brand Library continues to do programming. And one of them is their usually well-received Opera Talks. LA Opera speakers come out. The next one is October 13th. They'll talk about the production of Madame Butterfly. And then the one after that, usually in November, that's going to be a concert. So some of the student performers will be at the library. Brand Library. Again, I mentioned it was closed for renovation, so their annual Works on Paper event, the exhibition, is going to be held at the Burbank Creative Arts Center. It's the 41st. It's a juried exhibition, Works on Paper. This one they're calling Memories. So if you can get out to Burbank, right next door to us, you can see that. That runs from October 5 through October 25th, the whole month. Again, Brand Library. There's a fairly current picture. It's closed to the public. You can see the fence around it. There's a couple of signs from the contractors and the architects. I know Cindy was just up there, and I brought these pictures to you before, but I've got a little bit of different slant. There's, again, some of the stencils on the ceilings of Brand Library. And the last time I talked to you, it didn't look good that they'd be able to save any of that. But they're trying to be creative and figure out ways to keep little sections of it. But this is the kind of artwork that nobody has ever seen, since, I don't know, at least the 40s. At the 40s, it was already painted over or covered. So we've got cherubs. We have, they're really dramatic, considering we didn't know they were there. Again, their Brand Library's temporary location is at the Central Library. We have about a third of the collection, but that's close to 30,000 items, books, CDs, and our staff confirms that people are have found the Central Library who used to go to Brand a lot, and they're coming down and borrowing things and asking art and music reference questions. We still have children's programs, of course. During the fall, our staff gears up and prepares for kids going back to school. So most of their work, homework, answering questions, a lot of the programming we do at this time, up until December, January, is for smaller children. So preschool, there's a lot of programs going on. And this one, again, another contest. If you go to readbuildplay.com, you can vote for Glendale Public Library and perhaps help us get a few $1,000s worth of Legos for our libraries. Finally, I like to always end with our mobile app. It's a nifty app that works on Apple phones, iPads, Android devices, any kind of your mobile devices. You can figure out where the library is. You can find a book, find a CD, put it on hold. There's a number of electronic databases you can look at. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. I hope you'll download that if you can.
Just wanted to mention that Antonia Arcelon is a very well-known author, and she is extremely well received in Italy. I was very surprised when I got it from from Elizabeth Gregorian, the email regarding her event. I talked to some friends in Italy, and they were really surprised that we have such a famous person among us. So that I would encourage everybody to be there. Again, I want to remind Brand 41, usually their exhibitions, the Brand Associates, they put together this year because we didn't have it in our Brand Library. Well, we had to go to Burbank, but it's a phenomenal event, and October 5th is the opening event, so I would really want everybody to come in. There are some of the events, I don't know if Terry Deaver has given you updates on the Brand Associates, the upcoming events. But
I've seen some of that. I didn't really have anything after Women Art Revolution, so I'll expect some more from her. But again, you can look at their website for some of that information.
Just to add on my colleague's comment, Ms. Arslan's, one of her works was made into a very nice movie by one of the best film directors, two brothers, Italian brothers, Academy Award winners, The Lark Farm, and she's very big in Europe, and I'm glad that you can get this kind of high caliber writers to our community.
Staff work pretty hard at
that. Ms. Arslan is an outstanding author. Excellent. And her Lark Farm was an incredible novel, and also, as I said, made into a movie, and by the Taviani brothers. Taviani brothers are world famous for their cinematic work. It's just, and I'm really hoping that this new book from her will also become a major international movie.
Yeah.
Anyway, congratulations. That's a very good invitation of a very prominent writer.
I will let our staff know, and Elizabeth Gregorian. Let her know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next item, please.
At 3C, presentation Words of American Patriots exhibition at Adams Square Gas Station, presented by Teresa Alexanian, Executive Analyst.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Cavani and members of the Commission. My name is Teresa Alexanian, Executive Analyst for Community Services and Parks. Today I'm here to report to you and also thank Mr. Michael Sheehan, who sits behind me, a longtime Adams Hill resident and artist who was responsible for the Words of American Patriots art installation at the Adams Square gas station. I have a couple of photos, and I believe Mr. Sheehan has a book of his work. The Words of American Patriots was a July 4th exhibit that was displayed at the Adams Square gas station at the Adams Square Mini Park. The exhibition opened on July 1st with a reception in time for the July 4th holiday and ran through August 26th. Michael provided some goodies for the opening reception, and I was unable to make it, but I heard that it was well received by the community and the artists. The installation featured 60 individual artworks of works of art contributed by professional artists, government officials, high school students, and by Adams Hill residents, each consisting of one word from the writings of American patriots on cardboard panels. As you can tell, Mr. Sheehan did the installation himself, and the panels made curtains around the glass walls of the gas station. And my favorite shots were the evening shots that Mr. Sheehan worked very hard to get some lights installed, and it looked amazing. And in this one, you could see a couple of the residents hanging out looking at the artwork. I just have a couple of close-ups of the individual works, and I believe this one was done by Ms. Friedman, if I'm not... Laura Friedman.
And her husband did that together.
And her husband. And this one was done by our city manager, Scott Ochoa. So just wanted to say thank you to Mr. Sheehan and report to the commission that the installation was very successful. I know he's here, so he'll probably talk a little bit more about it. So, thank you.
Just wanted to mention, I'm so proud of our city members, our councilmen, and city manager, who really not only they participate, they come to such events, but they also, city manager collaboratively with his wife had prepared this work. So it's like being really involved in what happens in the community, and really, it was well received, lots of people, it was good time. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sheehan.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, please.
At 3D presentation, Riverwalk Project and Maryland Avenue Park Project Public Art Components presented by Emil Tatevosian, Capital Project Administrator.
Good afternoon, members of the Commission. It's my pleasure to be before you since you've moved to your new home. Although I'm not part of the the library department, I'm still trying to get handled on the new title, Library, Arts, and Culture Department. But it's a home away from home for me. You're in great hands with Cindy, and I look forward to further collaboration with you and the department. Just to bring you up to speed on two of our projects, the Riverwalk project has been on our boards for about, I'd like to say actively, for the past 3 years. And many of you have had an opportunity to go walk the site and get an idea of what we're trying to achieve out there. That's an interesting arrangement we have with the contractor, because the contractor is actually obligated to the agency that is providing the grants and not to the city of Glendale. But we have enjoyed a wonderful collaboration with the contracting entity. And I'm hesitant to say, but I'd like to say it because it's going to be public, but we're hoping to have a grand opening sometime within the next month or so. So stay tuned, you'll be getting invitations. But my presentation is focused on the public art component. As with all of our parks projects, we have a public art element, and this is no different than the other projects. However, the difference here is that the contractor entity had already selected their artists, but we had a very active advisory committee consisting of Ms. Arlette Derovanessian and Mr. Raufogel from the Parks and Recreation Commission, along with one of our residents there, two of our residents there, Ms. B.J. Kinkler and Ms. Joanne Hedge, who participated on the advisory committee and curated the two artists' work, and I'm happy to say it's about 90% complete. I hesitated to bring pictures because I'd like for you to see it for the first time when we grand open within the next 4 to 6 weeks. You may recall we did a presentation before this board. I want to say sometime about 3 months ago before they started the work, and the artists were Katie Cupper and Robert Rossoff. Both of them really renowned artists, and I've seen bits and pieces of their art piece installation, and it just looks wonderful. Slightly different than what we had seen before, but with all art design components, they're very, they have evolved to fit their context. The next project that's on our boards is the Maryland Avenue Park. That's a brand new park south of Glendale, located on the east side of Glendale Avenue, just north of Chevy Chase.
West of Glendale.
West of Glendale Avenue, pardon me.
East of Brand.
East of Brand and north of Chevy Chase. It's a new park. We hesitate to call it a mini park because it's really not mini, but it's really not what we define a community park, but it's a good-sized park. That one will also have very interesting public art components. We don't just do a installation. There's actually a whole collaboration with the community and the art advisory committee. And what we come up with, typically, I say the staff really has no say in the art component selection, but it really becomes part of and a unique part of each park. And in this case, again, Ms. Arlette de Rovanesian has been our Arts and Culture Commission representative, along with Mr. Raufogel as the Parks and Recreation Commission representative. The artist for that hasn't been selected yet. The advisory committee is in the process of reviewing the proposals, and I'm hoping that within the next month the selection will be made, and the artist team has some time to devise or come up with the concept. And as courtesy to the two commissions, the Arts and Culture Commission and the Parks and Recreation Commission, we just do a status report. In terms of upcoming projects, I'm happy to say that we have two new projects on our boards, although they're not new parks, Maple and Palmer Parks. Those are one of our most active, one of the oldest parks in our neighborhoods, and we're happy that we're starting renovation work on those two projects. And both of those will also have an art component. Even though the Maple Community Center had its own interior art element, we're hoping that we'll have exterior art components there. So you have an opportunity to either continue with the same advisory committee representative or to, amongst the commission, to select somebody new to participate. I anticipate that will be before you, or whenever you decide to tell us who that person will be, that will engaging you in the selection process within the next, I would say, 3 to 6 months. So stay tuned. We're happy that neither of these parks have been designed yet. We have the designers selected on Maple Park. You've met the designers. I'm drawing a blank right now. Is Catherine Spids and Susan Narduli are the design teams for Maple. The minute you said the name, the other names came to my memory. And then Palmer Park, we're in the process of selecting the design team. So with that, I'm done, unless you're ready for your grilling. He warned me that he was going to be grilling me.
I promised. No, I was just joking.
Yeah.
I have a few questions, though.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. No grilling today. I mean.
All right. You want me back, I suppose, right?
Absolutely. Always. I always enjoy your presentations. Can you tell us how one gets to the Riverwalk project? Where is the kind of entrance, so to speak, to it?
Great question. Most of our community probably doesn't even know anything about Riverwalk.
That's why I'm asking.
As part of our next, I'm hoping that following our grand opening, we are planning on having two big presentations, one for you and the other for the the Parks and Recreation Commission. Because it's such a hidden gem, and no one really understands the value of what that brings to our city, not just in terms of our residents and our equestrian community, our bike riding community, our pedestrian community, our moms with carriages, but just putting us on the map regionally. Riverwalk is adjacent to the LA River. That's been on almost every city's radar to take advantage of that recreation corridor to capture recreational opportunities along the river. So the best way to get there would be to go south on Sonora, make a left on Betty Davis Drive. Betty Davis Park is located there. It's interesting because that portion of the access point is actually part of City of LA. But once you pass and you get to the River Park entrance, all of a sudden you're in the City of Glendale. So a portion of our park is situated in the City of LA. Not to mention the other agencies that we've had to collaborate with, Caltrans, County, the LA River Conservancy. The other entrance is going to be off of Flower, right adjacent to the DreamWorks campus. So our neighborhoods, our residents will have 2 points of access. However, the main entrance where the parking is located would be off of Sonora, and we're hoping that following our grand opening we'll be installing directional signage along Glen Oaks, San Fernando, I think that's probably the best way to get to those sites. If you were taking the new Fairmont off-ramp, once you go down, immediately the first driveway you can go in would be the entrance to the park.
Down
However,
which
you
way?
can't park there at this point.
Well, so it seems that I have to take you with me next time I want to go there first time.
Absolutely. We'll be happy to arrange for a tour, but I'm hesitant because I want it to be open.
No,
At this
of course.
point, you know how it is before you
Of course.
before you have a big party, everything's really dirty. So we're getting to the point where we're having a big party soon.
No, of course I understand that, but the point I'm trying to make with with a little bit of light comments is I'm not quite sure if our community is as aware of this great project as it should be, and I'm not quite sure what you do to publicize this, and that's basically why I was asking how to get there, etc.
I appreciate that.
My personal feeling is when I'm in a conversation with some of our community members, almost nobody knows what's going on that. So in addition to everything else, maybe a publicity, maybe a GTV6 little clip or something would be very helpful, because I think it's going to be a huge asset to our community, to our city, and people should know
I
how to get
appreciate
there.
that. I think before I joined the wonderful Parks Department, I had no idea what the Riverwalk was about, even though we had heard about it from within the organization. But ever since I've been christened as a river brother, and we're hoping that you all will be brothers and sisters of the river soon. So stay tuned.
So when you are going there next time, give me a call. Maybe I can just go
I'll be
along
going
with
there tomorrow morning. You'll be more than happy. I'll be more than happy to take you along.
Okay, great. My next question is about the Maryland Park. That park has been in works, or at least in plans, for years now. And the reason I know it where it is specifically and all that, I own a building right walking distance, probably about 50 feet or 50 yards away from there. And my residents there, I've always promised that, don't worry, there is a great park coming up here. And I've been saying that for past 7 years now. And somehow I become the person who give that little kid story. What is it? The
Wolf.
the wolf.
Yeah.
The wolf guy, right? So and I know it's coming. I have seen the plans. I have seen some nice renderings of it, and etc. But my question is, when is it coming? When can the community in that area, where and that it's just a bare land right now, and the kids in my building, there have been many kids born in that building, and all of them are waiting for their park to play. I don't want them for their kids. I don't want their kids to kind of go and play in there.
Well, I will apologize on behalf of the city for you being the bad person here, but this, again, has been a very interesting project because as part of our grant, this is fully a grant-funded project. And as we typically within the Parks Department, most of our money is leveraged through outside funding resources. That's how we're able to get so much done within the city with limited resources. As you can aware, with every grant, there are certain restrictions, purse strings attached. This was no exception to that. We had also started with, if I can recall correctly, there was supposed to be a recycled water irrigation system. However, after going through the design process and bidding it out, which took about a year, we realized that that's not doable or feasible within the grant money that was provided to us. So that, one could say that time was wasted. It didn't really take away from the beauty of the park because no one would have seen the recycled components, but nonetheless we could have been proud with another environmentally sound project. However, putting that aside, we're going out to bid in October. So God willing, we'll get some contracts that we can select from and start construction by turn of the year.
Oh, that's wonderful. And
so let me be the bad person this time if we don't start.
Okay, from now on, I'm going to refer them to you.
Yeah.
No, but all the jokes again aside, I have had some artists approaching me and asking what is the criteria to get them into making a proposal for the art component on that park. I'm not quite sure if you said the RFPs are already out, or they are already in, or how does that work? Can you give us a little bit of information, more detailed information on this art component of that part?
You have to bear, I would be more than happy to. You have to bear with me because this is not part of what we typically do. This was part of what the Arts Commission used to do at the time. So at the time, Ms. Marashian, for the Maple the Maple Community Center, she had done an RFP, a mass RFP. From what I recall, there were wonderful artists that had submitted. They provided a wonderful selection, a palette to select from for future purposes. And for the sake of expediency, and because we hadn't heard any further interest from the artist community, we've tapped into those those lists that have been generated, both for Riverwalk we didn't select, but specifically for Maryland. However, I anticipate for the two upcoming projects, Maple and Palmer, because roughly about a year and a half or about a year would have passed since the last RFP or whatever it was done back then, we'll issue another one, working with your commission and the department to get sort of fresh blood to work with.
So basically, right now, any new proposals from any artists for Maryland Park is closed.
It's closed at this time. Okay. Yes, the submissions were due. Remind me, I think they were due about 2 months ago.
There was an RFP. The criteria was very clear.
Yeah.
Last or the one before the commission meeting, we asked Mrs. Marasha, and she said because the budget is so little, so not many artists participated in that event. The artists who are going to be participating, their names and their projects and their proposals all are there. So now we are at the process of choosing one of the, I think 6, 7 or 8, I'm not exactly sure of the artists, but there are lots of issues that we have to have in mind. So it is there for this one already. The artists who have given their projects, proposals is already taken care of. A question about the Riverwalk. Before the opening, hopefully the flower gate would be done and finished, because many people are asking in that area that because for us to be able to have the bike rides and the mothers with the carriages and etc., there needs to be a kind of a bridge and a walkway. So is that going to be taken care of before the opening?
Perhaps you can clarify what you mean by the flower gate.
Because, you said that there is one entrance that you go down Sonora, and there is the other one that is, there needs to be a little kind of a bridge that you cross over, and the entrance, there are 2 gates to it. The second gate was not yet prepared when we were all meeting, and it was still in discussion, that there needs to be a bridge connecting it from one end to the other, so bicycles can ride through. So is that in the process, or that would be the second phase? Because there are different phases to the Riverwalk project.
I could see you're as anxious about this project as I am. That's not part of this phase. Okay. The bridge is going to be part of phase 2. Okay. Pedestrians and park users will be able to access it from
one side.
Well, no, both sides. They can access it from Flower, right next to DreamWorks. What phase 2 accomplishes is the connection between phase 1 and phase 2. Of course, the public going out there, they're not going to know what's phase 1 and phase 2. It just looks good on a diagram when you call it a phase 1, phase 2. But there's a current a dump into the river that we have to bridge over. Outfall, pardon me, there's a technical term that I'm not thinking right now. There's an outfall into the river that we have to bridge over. That's part of the phase 2, because the majority of phase 2, if you recall, with the Fairmont off-ramp has been done. It's just that there's a park component and the bridge component that we're hoping will be starting design as soon as we finish and grand open with phase 1.
Sounds good.
But to answer your question, if I can, going back to, if there are artists who are interested, I think they could either contact the library department, the Library Arts and Culture department, or our department. I'm sure Ms. Vartini would be more than happy to take their information and pass it on.
So if there is interest, and I'm glad you mentioned it, because every time I go to any of these art events, exhibitions and things, of course there are some artists present there, and quite often they ask me about these issues. So do I direct them to Ms. Vartanian or to yourself, or?
Well, Ms. Vartanian has always been our contact for the art advisory process, and Ms. Marashian before that.
Okay, so she will be the one. Okay. Great.
I do believe that
Thank you.
Ms. Vartanian should have the list of the interested artists, and then when the time comes, any other projects comes in hand, then Ms. Vartanian could contact the ones who were interested, so they could hand in their proposals,
Absolutely.
so that then it could be processed through the commission and etc. And a little bit joke of what Commissioner Gregorian said. I remember years ago I was going to rent a house, an apartment, and the ad said it has horseback riding area and it has tennis court and swimming pool. I thought, oh my God, what a luxurious kind of a place I need to go. It was on Los Villas. There was a small little apartment, but what they meant was the Los Villas, this park that is next to it, the Griffith Park, was all the amenities that they were offering. So hopefully yours, the next generation, would use that.
In real estate, we call that misrepresentation, but that's okay.
Well, nobody, they were, and it was there. It was even walking distance. If it was a complex, it would not be too far either. So it was kind of there now. Your promises kind of reminds me of that. So hopefully we can, CD can expedite,
Absolutely.
so it would get to this generation.
I think so. I hope so.
So if you get a call from my tenants, you know who gave them your number.
You have my direct line. Have them call me. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Emil.
Next item, please.
Item 4, oral communications. Discussion is limited to items not on this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. Commission may question the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. Staff may refer the matter for investigation and report.
I have one card, and it's for Michael Sheehan.
Well, thanks to Teresa, most of what I delivered on Monday to a select number of folks who had been helpful with the 4th of July project, you already know about. But because I'm an analog kind of guy, if you'd like to take a look at the album that I made, includes pictures, nighttime pictures and daytime pictures of the gas station installation, and all 60 artists who participated. I want to thank those of you that made it by, and if you guys made it by, I didn't see you, but I'm sure you did and enjoyed it very much. I ran into Mayor Quintero yesterday, and he told me that he'd actually driven by, which made me very happy. I wanted to tell you that the cooperation from the Arts and Culture Commission and the wonderful cooperation that I got from Mr. Duran and the folks over in Community Services and Parks was not like pulling teeth. It was not as smooth as it could have been because of the insurance issue that you may recall the discussion we had a few months ago. But I'm here basically to pitch to you that in the future, finding a way, because I'm interested in Adams Hill because that's where I live, if finding a way to pave the way for other artists to put anything into the gas station, notwithstanding the risk of whatever might happen, the stuff that can go in there can be like the stuff that the 60 artists whom I rounded up could put in, that is basically disposable. Though one of the pieces will be in the Brand 41 show, and I would invite everybody to make sure they make it to Burbank for the Brand Associates show. I wanted to tell you also that collaboration ideas came from the LA Municipal Art Gallery. Scott Canty, Edith Abeda, and Michael Lewis Miller, who are artists, and Scott is the director of the LA Municipal Art Gallery, came by, and all of a sudden ideas were flying left and right, and the possibility of a collaboration with the Barnsdall Gallery is out there. I was also fortunate to meet this guy whose name is Craig Watson, and if you haven't met Craig Watson, or you don't know who he is, you really should. He is the director of the California Arts Council. And the California Arts Council has funds available for all kinds of different California art projects. Years ago, I was a site visitor for the California Arts Council, and I know that they do really great work, and even with all the budget stuff that we're going through now, this goes to my final point. With volunteerism and with crazy people like me who are willing to work really hard for, and spend their own money, for projects, I just hope that we'll figure out a way to tap other people who might be as enthusiastic as I've been about trying to get this artwork into the gas station. And let's see, Brand 41, Craig Watson, Scott Canty, Edith Abeda, Michael Lewis Miller, I'm Michael Sheehan, and thank you.
Comments?
It was a wonderful event, and it was a good collaborative event, and we were very proud of what you did there, all your efforts, and thank you to the community as well because they participated. It was really well received, and you had goodies and punches and all kinds of refreshments. Thank you.
Oh, I had Jeannie Gale Poole. Dr. Poole was responsible for all of the refreshments. I resisted refreshments, but she insisted. And so not only did we have refreshments at the opening, but at the closing when people came and picked up their stuff, she also insisted and brought punch and cookies. And so the neighbors and the artists who came to pick up their stuff were treated. And so I don't have to have that back right away. If, as you continue your meeting, you want to look at that, I'll stick around. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to field them.
Commissioner Gregorian?
I've already made my comments in the past. I'm just repeating them. I don't want to go again. You know how appreciative of all the work that you did, hard work, I am. And my question is, I'm repeating them and reiterating them again, all my past positive comments about this project. But my question is, what is the next project in there?
Well,
are you thinking about anything?
I've said over and over that I don't want to be the guy. And so I had a meeting last week with the art teachers of the Glendale Unified School District and basically pitched to them the same thing that I've pitched to you, hoping that given enough time that Glendale schools could come up with all kinds of different things to put into the gas station. And I want to reiterate that the quality of the work, we know refrigerator art from Ed Ruscha, and those are a wide version for me. The 60 pieces of art that were in the July 4th project were as wide. We had an 88-year-old artist and a 5-year-old artist. We have a professional artist, Jamie Odgers, whose piece will be going into the Brand 41, which is the reason I'd like for you to go. And so I just want to see stuff in there. Right now, it's an empty space again. And it would be just so easy to come up with something that would go in and be there. Thanks to this project, I've met the Glendale Art Association and Dick Heimbold, who's visited here and is really a hardworking and a really good guy and a wonderful painter. And he's had an idea that maybe some of the members of the Glendale Art Association, he was talking about a railroad theme one time. And the way that stuff can be displayed in there is myriad. We don't just have to hang stuff. We can put stuff on platforms. We can stick it on the windows. We can throw it on the floor and make people look in at it and so on. And so the answer to your question, Razmik, is that I don't know. But if somebody asks me to consult, I'll be happy to consult. I'm a 5-minute walk away from the gas station, and I go to the park just to enjoy it now and then, just because I live there.
Mr. Sheehan, looking at the folder, this is phenomenal, the way you have put them in nice order. Is there a way that you could find a wall within the city or anywhere that you find appropriate that those pictures could be lined up the way they carry the slogans and the political message that it carries? Because the way you have put it in the folder, it gives a very nice display of the message for that special event.
Well, my attitude is that I believe in the ephemera of life. And this was an ephemeral installation, which was the title of the piece that I did when Cindy curated my work into the Brand 17 years ago, or 15 years ago, or a long time, 1997, 15 years ago. And so the answer to your question is yes. And if you have a place you want copies of these pictures to go, I'd be happy to help with that. I think that they should probably go the way that the inserts in the little panels have gone, because they read from left to right. These are the times to try men's souls. If this be treason, make the most of it, and so on. And the interesting thing was that the serendipity of how the words all came about was just out of my 8th grade civics memory. And I just wrote all these words down, and then I started to organize them. And if I were to do it again, I would do it only 45 pieces that were 18 by 24, because the people who had the bottom row, you had to get right up on the gas station to see that. And my friend Jeannie had one on the bottom, and she hasn't let me forget it yet. But the answer is yes, and so if you have an idea, you have my email address, I'll be happy to
We
help
could
anyway.
talk with Brand Associates next meeting
I have
and
them-
see what we can do, or if there is any kind of little exhibitions, or we could talk to Cindy and see if any of the library locations can afford to give us the space so we could line them up all in a row so the slogans would come alive in the way that art expresses the political idea.
If somebody provides a space, I'll be happy to create what you're talking about. In my living room is still full of versions of this.
Mr. Sheehan, thank you very much for all of your hard work. This is exactly what this city and actually the entire country needs, for people to actually step up and say, I live here and I want to make something artful happen. That's what this country and the world probably also needs.
Volunteerism is the way to get anything done. If you have to move a couch, you ask somebody to help you. And I'm here to say to the place where I've lived for over 25 years that I'm here to help, and I'm opinionated, and
We know that.
No, really?
I can get things done given the key to the darn gas station. I get a lot more done.
Well, again, we appreciate that. It's I'm an artist as well. I'm opinionated. That's just the way artists work. So we appreciate that. Thank you so much.
I appreciate your time and I appreciate your support. I really do.
Thank you.
you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to just a quick warning to my colleagues that we have about an hour left and that we have a very busy schedule. So let's all keep that in mind. Just a friendly reminder. Next item, please.
Item 5, business agenda. At A, action items, review and approve Arts and Culture Commission retreat agenda.
Commissioners, at our last meeting, you provided some feedback on the upcoming retreat agenda and formed an ad hoc committee to further discuss and finalize the agenda. Commissioners Lee and Deaver worked with staff, and we've prepared a final retreat agenda for your review and approval today. Essentially, the main discussion topics included in the agenda are to identify broad long-term goals for 5 years for the arts in Glendale, as well as identifying special projects, baseline projects, and ongoing programming, and also to identify any available resources. The goal is to then select 10 long-term goals and 10 areas of focus for an arts master plan, and then start thinking about developing work plans for the rest of this fiscal year as well as fiscal year 2013 and 14 based on these long-term goals. I'm happy to answer any questions. If not, I guess a motion to approve the agenda.
Okay, do we have
It's available.
any comments? Colleagues look like they're analyzing the agenda moment.
And just a note, the break at 10 a.m. that we've included is actually because of the arts tune-up that's hosted by the LA County Arts Commission is happening at the Central Library the same day. So we're going to take a short 15-minute break at 10 a.m. for the chair just to go in and welcome the group that's there. And then for the rest of the commissioners, you are welcome to come and say hello or to take a break as needed. I just wanted to clarify that's what it was for.
You see, no break for the chair.
It's a
Not
tough
the
job.
perks.
That's why I get paid the big bucks.
Responsibility.
Yeah, exactly.
Want to make a motion to approve?
Yes, I second.
Okay.
Commissioner Terhovhanessian,
Yes.
Gregorian,
Yes.
Yes.
Chairperson Kavanian.
Yes. That went real smooth. Next item, please.
At 5B, reports information only. At 1, status update on temporary art display and community services and parks facilities policy.
As we mentioned last month, we are currently working with staff and Community Services and Parks Department to finalize the policy to be able to display, to do temporary displays in some of the parks facilities. The policy offers display opportunities for artists and artist groups in select locations on an annual basis, and the policy provides the guidelines for submission, selection, exhibition, and insurance of the artwork. The final component of this is determining the costs of implementing the program, which include the liability insurance, staffing, security and anchoring of artwork, and the ongoing maintenance. So we expect to finalize some of those numbers, bring you a more complete report in October, so then you can then discuss this policy at your retreat, and when you know exactly what the cost is of implementing the program.
Everything's good? Right, next item, please.
Thank you.
At 2, report regarding urban art plan policies from other cities.
Just as a refresher, in December 2010, the City Council adopted an ordinance creating their Glendale Urban Art Program, which establishes the requirements and procedures for providing public art in conjunction with new development. In June, I gave you an overview. That's essentially the 2% developers are required to provide artwork on site that's equivalent to 2% of their project costs, or they have the option of paying, making an in lieu payment that's 1% into the Urban Art Fund. At the last meeting and in preparation for your retreat, I'm giving you a quick overview of how some other communities program their funds, so you get an idea of how other people are using their fund, so then we can discuss that at our retreat. So when I was researching neighboring cities, I looked at programs that are similar to Glendale's program. There are a lot of communities that have a % for art for capital improvement projects. So I'm only looking at cities that have a private development standard, because we want to compare apples and apples. As well as I wanted to look at cities that have an option for on-site or an in lieu payment. Some cities mandate a percentage, and that's not what we have. And then I also wanted to look at programs, cities that have a program that's citywide or beyond, like a redevelopment area. Some cities, it's very, very focused area. Again, we want to compare the programs that are similar to Glendale. And then, of course, I looked at cities that have established guidelines and a work plan, and that they have a notable arts program. So we begin with West Hollywood. Their program is 1% of development cost, either on site or in lieu. Their fund is managed by the Arts and Culture Commission. Their annual budget is $200,000, and they distribute the funds in temporary public art projects. And some of you who are familiar with West Hollywood's arts programming, that's their art and vacant storefronts, as well as the neon installations that are in the median. So that's what their temporary project is. Recently, they opened the new library, so there isn't a dollar figure associated there, because they've just been paying they're looking at programming that space. Again, it's going to be cultural programming. Some of the events that Chuck maybe mentioned is what they're looking at is as funding, so film series and other cultural programs. And then finally, grants. The grants fund nonprofits that provide a public benefit in the arts. So these are not grants that go directly to an artist. It's for an arts organization or a group that's providing a public benefit, and that's about $75,000 a year that they dedicate. And these grants are that are awarded are between $1,000 and $5,000 each, and they have 3 different grant types. So there's a lot of options. And then the way that they plan for the year ahead is they develop a work plan and a budget, and then it's approved by the City Council annually. So they say how they're going to spend their money, what they're going to spend it on, and then the City Council approves it with the overall city budget. Culver City also has a 1% either on-site or an in lieu payment, and their program is also managed by their Arts and Culture Commission. Their budget is slightly smaller than West Hollywood's, but they're funding a lot more different types of, or they're distributing their funds much more differently. They set aside money for permanent artwork, so they may be purchasing artwork that's $50,000 and less, or they're just saving up that money every year, putting it aside to be able to purchase permanent artwork. They fund performing arts programs. Administration of the fund is a lot of the marketing and mailers and such that goes along with doing a lot of this programming. The temporary art programs, again, are rotating installations that they do. They've done an art and vacant storefronts, but they've also just done a rotating installation in the downtown. They also provide children's programming. And for last year, they had designated $10,000 to update their cultural plan because I think it's about 15 years old, and they're looking to actually update their plan so it's similar to our plan. So something that I actually found is a lot of cities are looking to shift their percent for art to be up to par with Glendale's. So we're the progressive city in terms of our percent for art program. Similar to West Hollywood, every year the staff and the commission, they develop a work plan and the budget, and then it's approved by the council. City of Palm Desert, they have a little bit more complicated program type. So they charge 1/4% for on all residential development, 0.5% for commercial, and then 1% for city projects. I included them just because they're a little bit different, and then they can either provide it on the artwork on site, donate artwork that's equivalent to that percentage to the city, or make an in lieu payment. The city council manages their fund, and then their annual budget is $125,000 for programming. They actually double that amount to be able to pay for staffing. So they actually pay for all aspects of their staffing and division out of that fund. But that's the way their ordinance was written when it was first developed. And a lot of their money goes to maintaining artwork. They have about 80 permanent pieces of art, so they're constantly having to maintain that artwork. And then they do a temporary sculpture exhibition, so it's constantly rotating. And then the $60,000 pays for the installation maintenance, and then they also give each artist an honorarium. The programming is a film series they do through a local school, and then they also designate a portion for marketing. So they print maps to encourage people to go on walking tours in the downtown, and then actually a portion of that goes to pay for docent tours of the downtown. And then in Palm Desert, the city council develops the work plan and the budget. The commission just reviews the art projects that are proposed. Pasadena has a 1% requirement, and then depending on which part of the city it is, if the developer's providing art on site, they designate 20 to 25% automatically into a cultural trust fund. So there's this kind of a split program. And the Arts and Culture Commission manages their fund, their cultural fund, and their budget is the largest, and it's $320,000. And a majority of that goes to the rotating and temporary art program that they have. Each year, their neighborhood mural program, they give more or less, and then they also do a large event called Arts Night, so that's their cultural tourism event that they do. They also provide performing arts grants. Now, I apologize for not having more detailed information on the neighborhood mural program and the performing arts grants. Staff in Pasadena wasn't very forthcoming with some of their the line items, and I did have to do a lot of research looking at the budget, so this was the information I was able to find. But I'm guessing that their grants are at about $110,000, just looking at the amount of grants that they're approving, and I think the neighborhood mural program might be around $20,000. These are just guesstimates. I didn't want to include my guesses in this. And then, again, the commission develops a work plan and a budget, and then they present it to the city council for approval with the overall city budget. And finally, Santa Monica, they have a percent for our program that's just like Glendale's. They established theirs in 2008, but they haven't collected funds yet. There isn't a lot of development that happens in Santa Monica. The little development that has happened there, the developer has provided art on site. Their guidelines are in place. They're just waiting to get money to be able to program that. And their distribution is, again, to acquire permanent artwork and maintain it, to sponsor cultural facilities and cultural resources. Santa Monica has few cultural facilities, so they want to be able to help fund those. And then other artistic and cultural uses as determined by the commission. And once they start programming this money, much like every other city, it's develop a work plan and a budget presented to the council for approval. Just to summarize everything for you, the average budget is about approximately $150,000 per year. I did not include the staffing cost at Palm Desert. I wanted you to know exactly how much goes into programming. And the most common distribution of the funds is for temporary public art projects and programming, acquiring and maintaining permanent art, and cultural programming. And the most common art and artist selection is through open competition, is regardless of, if it's a grant or if they want to do cultural program, is okay, they open it up for proposals or qualifications, and then they select based on that. And a common process is to develop a work plan and a budget every year and recommend it to the City Council for their approval. So that concludes my presentation. I just want to remind you to just, again, think about it. We're going to spend about 6 hours thinking about all this in our retreat, so I'm happy to answer some basic questions that you have, but I look forward to actually being able to dig deeper into this and to really get your thoughts and ideas when we have our retreat.
There's a common line in all the presentations that you had, that for the rotating the art or the sculpture and etc., so that means they have locations that are already, the lighting and the hooking up and the hanging of the work is already there. So assumingly that's how they do the rest of the process, which I suppose in our city we have to work on that as a first step, which we'll discuss at the meeting again.
Actually, the rotating programs that these cities have are outside locations, so they're exterior locations. So like Pasadena, that has it. So the ones that cost the most, those are outside locations. So the lighting and some of those considerations that we have to do. So it makes it a little bit easier. So if we have public property or private property owners that are open to it, we don't have to worry about the lighting, but then we also have to take into consideration the natural elements and how they would affect the artwork, and that's when we would lay it out, and that's when you lay it out in the request for qualifications or proposals.
So the majority were outdoors of whatever you have?
Yes, because it's public art program, so that's the most accessible location is outside. So.
Sure, Gregorian.
You done?
You're
done?
Gregorian.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I have a couple of questions. Number one, the budgets that were discussed, they seem to be kind of fixed budgets. And it seems to me, with the cost of development and all that, it seems to me the budgets are much smaller than what a city would normally collect. Like in West Hollywood, the budget is approximately $150,000 or whatever it was, and I don't believe that a city like West Hollywood would collect less than that at that 1% fee. And with the same token, Glendale, we know what we are collecting or we are hoping to collect by the end of the year, and it's much larger than that's 150,000 and whatever. So my question, the first question is, do you know what the cities do with that surplus funds, or if there is a shortage, how they add on to it? Because if we say a budget of 150,000 and you've collected 200,000 or 100,000, that difference has to come or go somewhere. Basically, that's the first question.
Any funds that are not used in that one budget year are just kept in the fund, and it's kept in with the city's overall fund. So just like our urban art fund is managed by the city treasurer, we're not using it right now, so it's being managed with the rest of the funds. So if we're only using $100,000 a year, for example, the rest of the money is sitting in that fund being managed by our city treasurer. So what cities like West Hollywood and all these other cities, they have much more money. It's just to make that money go a very, very long way, they're limiting themselves to a set budget annually. So let's say if they have $1 million, how do they make that last 10 years, for example?
So basically that the surplus money doesn't go back to the general fund for general purposes, but it has to stay there because it was collected as of a certain purpose.
Correct. It has to stay within the urban art fund or cultural fund, whatever they've designated. But in our ordinance, and every other city has it, I mean, the funds, once we collect it, we have to spend it within 15 years. We have to provide limitations, but I think we'll be able to spend dollars that we've received within a 15-year period. So.
Okay. Thank you. That's the answer I was hoping to get. The next question is, I'm sorry, I lost the track of my mind. The details of this, are we going to get? I mean, the presentation was very brief, very concise, very good. However, for us to be able to kind of look a little more into detail of it for the retreat, we might need some literature. Are we going to get that, or how's that?
What literature do you want? I can provide you with, well, what literature are you looking for, and I can tell you if it's available or not.
I'm looking at any useful literature that you can provide us.
Well, I could provide you with the ordinance and guidelines that are similar to what I presented in June. A work plan, unless it's been approved like as a public document. Some of these are internal documents, but I'm sure I could try and get that and find out how detailed that is for you. And then if there's a master plan for the arts, I can try and access that information. Mm-hmm. So is that everything that you want? I mean, what information do you want specifically, or do you want it all? I want it to be helpful to you and to keep you focused, so let me know what's going to help you.
Commissioner Gregorian, does this mean that you want to know what are the ordinance and policies made into exactly how that money is being invested and how that money is being used? Because if the money goes back to the treasury system, there needs to be a clear guideline, so later on there will be no questions, neither for the developers nor the community, into how that works. So to know exactly how that money is going to be invested, so it would be an ongoing process for at least maybe 10, 15 years, because whatever the money is, how is that going to work so they could carry it on? Most of those projects that was in the report, it was an ongoing every year budget that they have for doing the stuff they do. So we need to see how we need to do with our money here, that it would go for many years and we could kind of secure that it's going to be ongoing for, let's say it's a 5-year plan or 6-year plan, and etc.
Well, of course, I don't want to discuss the points of the retreat at this meeting. This is not the venue for it. However, overall speaking, it seems to me that these funds from all these other cities that were presented here, and including ours, will hopefully accumulate and grow over time. And eventually, it may become some serious money around. I remember one Arab sheikh, I think, was buying the Citibank, and when they asked him, he was making some donations here, and they're small amounts. I mean, for him, $1 million, and eventually he said, $1 million here and $1 million there, and eventually it becomes serious money, as if $1 million is not serious money for that person. So eventually, a few thousand here, a few thousand there, for us, will become a very serious money. And I would like to know that what I have in mind that we should do as Glendale, City of Glendale and City of Glendale residents, if the other cities also have that in mind. For instance, if this money, let's say, accumulates, and let's say 5 years down the road, hopefully, becomes $1 million here, $1 million there, some serious money, then what do these other cities do? And I don't really need to follow the other cities. Hopefully we will do what is right for us, regardless. And maybe we will be pioneers and other cities will follow us. But what I'm saying is, if, let's say, 5 years from now, we have some really serious money, how do other cities handle that? Although I have my own ideas and although I have my own way of handling that, or proposals of handling that.
It's the way that they handle that is essentially they're collecting that money because we're going to get to a point. I mean, Santa Monica is at that point where they're not having development, where you're not collecting money.
Then they have to revise their own development plans and
well,
things.
so these.
It's a different story.
I mean, that's a different story. But we had a recession where there was barely any development happening in any communities, and they weren't collecting money. So all of these cities have had a percent for art program much, much longer than ours. So they have about 10, 15 years on us. So they were able to collect that money. During the recession, they weren't collecting money, but they were using. That's why they weren't using, $1 million at a time. They had limited themselves to an annual budget so that they could forecast how long that money's going to keep going, because in Glendale, I mean, we would love to, collect money forever, but we have to also be cognizant of the fact that we might not get money at certain times, but we also have to be able to make this money go a long way. And that's why I've broken it down for you to show you how each of these cities is using that money. They have reserves, if you want to call it. That's what's in the fund, and every year they're taking out $100,000 or $200,000 and programming that. And then the rest of the money is staying there. It might be increasing, it might be just staying at the same level.
And these sources that they have, are these exclusively development in lieu fee or development impact fees, or they have other sources like, permit fees, filming fees, grants and other things? Do you know about these other cities?
Well, these other cities, these are all development standards, so it's either one or whatever percentage on site or a payment. I'm not sure what you mean by the permit fees. I mean, every city has different fees that they're collecting, but these funds that they're collecting for art is being put into the Urban Art Fund. Some, I think West Hollywood, when 2 years ago they had to use some general fund dollars to be able to pay for some of their programming, but they're not using other funds for these purposes. These are all the programming that I've showed you here has been strictly paid for out of the Urban Art Fund.
The purpose I'm asking is because I believe we could have some other endeavors and sources to kind of add on to what we get from the development. I mean, I don't think development money is or should be our only source. That's basically what I'm asking.
I think we're kind of veering into the black abyss of discussion. So, having said that, is there any other questions?
Just the idea is that you got basically where we are standing on that, like what if there are possible fees or whatever other sources of money, so she could prepare it for our retreat so we could discuss that.
Okay.
And just a clarification or a recommendation that I have is to not give you information overload. I mean, the information that I've provided, I've summarized the most important details so you know how much money is being spent and how they're spending that. I can give you examples of an arts master plan that can get you in the mindset of thinking about some of the priorities. I don't think it's going to be helpful if I just give you a ton of documents to get you thinking outside of the box and really thinking about what we want. I just wanted you to get an idea of what kind of budget we're looking at and what are the different types of things other cities are paying for, so then you can come to the retreat and just give me ideas so we can develop our own plan. So that would be my recommendation, so that you're able to come in with your own ideas so we can have a productive conversation.
That's good. My personal request would be add on to that for the retreat. What are other sources besides the 1% or whatever that comes from the developments? what are the sources and fees are being used in that direction, so then we could advise the council on that area as well. Thank you.
Director Cleary?
If I may suggest as well that perhaps that those questions that you're asking would actually become part of the work plan, and a component of the work plan could be to explore other funding options rather than bringing you all the funding options to the meeting, since right now we're limited to the Urban Art Fund and the General Fund. If, the direction from you is that in the next year you want us to explore other funding sources, I think that would probably be a more productive way of approaching it.
Ms. Cleary, the request I had was that because, it's a long time there has been this conversation, so we thought if we would have other sources and forms and collecting fees, if comes to the meeting, we could have a better idea of proposing something and starting something that needs to be done. Because we need to lay down, or the city needs to lay down a major plan about how this money is supposed to be invested, how it's supposed to be managed, how it's supposed to be used, for how many years. So for a master plan, I do believe that it helps to see if there are the additional forms of fees collected in other cities, so that could guide us and our council into making a better decision, because it has been dilly-dallied for too long. So it would help us to expedite the process if possible.
Yeah. And the master and some examples of some master plans in a brief form would be very helpful.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Annette.
I'm going to,
Excellent job. Thank you.
in the fear of discussing further, yes, Commissioner Lee.
I think the most important point to have is the exact amount that's in the account, because at least from there we'll be able to divvy it up, and I think our best moving forward is, if we're planning a 5-year plan, we can divide up that money and then year by year, something to think about.
Right.
That's it.
Okay. Again, I don't want to discuss this further. Next item, please.
At 3, status report regarding GATE program.
Okay. Sure, all of you are familiar with the GATE program. I've been providing you updates for about the last year and a half. Back in May, I gave the City Council the 1-year update on the program. Essentially, just as a refresher, the GATE program was started as a redevelopment project to try and fill up vacant storefronts in the downtown area and eliminate the blighting effect that they had, but also to introduce public art to the downtown area. We thought it would be a great way to introduce an art to the community and to attract visitors. I just went through the objectives. Again, address blighting effect of the spaces, promote re-tenanting of buildings, enhance the pedestrian experience. Nobody wants to walk through empty and dirty or walk past empty and dirty buildings. And then we also wanted to use this as an opportunity to promote downtown Glendale. I brought several options before the Commission when we were looking to develop the program, and the Commission recommended that we retain a consultant to manage the program. As a side note, one of the options was that the city manage this program, and Palm Springs, this is for 3 years they've been trying to kickstart their program, so we went the right route. The Commission also recommended that Commission staff serve as a liaison for this program. At the time, Ripsame Marashian worked with me when we issued the RFP for a consultant and helped select the consultant. You also recommended that we include Glendale artists and expand the program citywide, should it be successful. The City Council chose to contract with Praxis, and essentially Praxis was responsible for managing the call for artists. We had over 200 artists respond and then curate the spaces and installations, and then coordinate with the artists and property owners. It took a lot of work to try and convince property owners to let somebody come into a space, move it around temporarily and put art in there. And Praxis was able to do that and be able to coordinate a lot of that discussion between the artists and the owners. And then also to build out the displays. Some of these spaces were way too big for us to just hang artwork, so we had to build something, and the consultant was able to do that for us. Accomplishment. So in the 1 year, we had 16 installations, which is over 13,000 square feet. That's larger than the Santa Monica Museum of Art. Theirs is, I think, only 9,000. So this is the largest non-contiguous gallery space that we had in Glendale. We were able to re-tenant 3 spaces with long-term leases, and then we provided free exhibition space for 42 artists, 20 of which were Glendale-affiliated artists. We held 5 public receptions and art walks. Again, we were trying to promote downtown Glendale, create vibrancy in the downtown, and on average, we attracted 200 people. 2 events drew over 400 people, and it increased business for nearby businesses like the Americana, CPK, Olive Garden, all noted additional visitors and business. And we also held community workshops. One of the Glendale organizations that participated, the Glendale Woodturners Guild, they held open workshops and gallery days, and they were their artists volunteered to keep them open, and they wanted the community members to come in and be able to interact with the art and the artists. And we had 30 open gallery or workshop days. And all of this is important, and it really created vibrancy because got people talking about Glendale and art in Glendale. LA Times, LA Weekly, Artillery Magazine all featured the program. KCRW's Design and Architecture did a segment on the program. Glendale News Press has been a long time supporter, and they've been covering it. And Blue Canvas, which is an online publication, also covered the program. And it did bring a lot of press, and Pasadena's contacted Glendale to get details of the program because they want to be able to do something like this in their city. So we are outdoing Pasadena in one area, and I'm very proud of that. The current status is noted. We successfully implemented the program. We were trying to achieve a lot of different objectives, as I noted at the beginning, and we were able to achieve those. And it created synergy throughout LA, but more importantly within the community. Community members, artists, residents, businesses have all asked that we continue the program. And when I presented to the council for direction, they've directed the commission to assess the future of this program in the context of available funding. And so we will bring this back to you after you have your master plan adopted, so you can think of this in the greater context of that. That concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Well, my suggestion would be what Councilman Najarian said. Since this was so popular with businesses and et cetera, and it caused some kind of commotion in the community and all that, why can't we have those businesses fund some money and invest some money in this project so we could, if we want to enhance this in the future?
I don't want to start discussion. I love the question, but we can save that for our retreat.
That's good. So it would be there for Ms. Vartanian
Yes.
also to look
Yes,
into. Thank you.
I appreciate the question. Yes, Commissioner Rivarian.
There was no mention of the budget, total budget here in your presentation.
Sure, I will tell you. So the contract amount that we had approved by the council or the agency was $83,000, but the final program cost billed was $78,000.
Okay. My question is, I understand all the good benefits that we drew out of this, and in your presentation, you made a point that an average about 200 people showed up, and there were 16 presentations. So I assume that total about 3,000 or 3,200 people showed up. And the budget was approximately about 80,000 or 78,000. So about 80,000 divided by 3,200, that's whatever it is. What is it helping, Commissioner? I think it is probably about $10, I mean, or no, just about $25 each, almost, right, for each participant. My question is, in your best assessment, is that worth to spend $25 to attract $25 per each participant in any event? And again, these numbers are very approximate, so I hope you won't. But what I'm trying to say is, I have nothing against the GATE program. I think it's an excellent program, and I think we should continue. But what we really have to see in our retreat is whether the $80,000 can be spent on a more productive and more frugal way than 16 really nice exhibitions. Basically, that's my question. So, in your opinion, was that $78,000 or $80,000 spent wisely?
To reach the objectives that we had set forth, yes, because it was trying to re-tenant businesses, attract people to the downtown, so visitor attraction, provide public art. So the program was beyond just trying to put art, it was trying to do a lot of different things. So it was a successful program in that sense because we tried to re-tenant spaces, we did that. We wanted to introduce art, we did that. We wanted to promote the city, we were able to do that. And of course, if this comes back to the commission for discussion, we're not going to have a lot of the limitations we had when it was a redevelopment project, and the council has asked that we look beyond what the program was and to assess it. Could, private dollars be leveraged? How can it be changed? How could it be more effective? So what it was in the first year is going to be different should it continue based on the commission's direction.
I understand that, and I do understand that this was a redevelopment agency program, and but I'm sure everybody would understand that re-tenanting vacant commercial spaces is not an Arts and Culture Commission duty or obligation, and I will concur with my colleague in the retreat in the future that maybe we should get that, and that's what I was referring to in the past, that we should get other sources to try to do all of this. Like when a building owner has vacant space, we shouldn't spend $80,000 to re-tenant that building owner. The building owner should fund us to do these things for them. So basically, again, this is, I don't want to get into discussion, but that's the point I'm trying to make. Our purpose is to promote arts and culture in the community and not to re-tenant vacant commercial spaces. And that's what I was asking, if this was a viable money spent. On the side of the redevelopment agency, probably it was. But on the side of the Arts and Culture Commission, I have my doubts.
Okay, we will bring this back for you to discuss with options after you have your master plan adopted in the context of arts and culture.
Excellent. That's what I'm asking. That's what I'm asking.
Good job.
All right.
Thank you. It was a good presentation.
Next item, please.
Item 6, commissions and staff comments.
I would like to start with some of the events that I've gone. One of them was Women and Art Revolution. It was very interesting. Brand Associates had kind of put this on, and being a liaison, it was my duty to attend, and it was wonderful. I was very glad to be there. The next issue, I've gone to different galleries and Curanzo and etc., all fair and well. What was interesting for me to report was Sealy's grand opening last night. I have a request and then a comment. Request is, please, if any such events happens in the city, email us as soon as possible so we could for sure calendar it, because council expect us, because we do advise and we are representing the community, we need to attend. And to be able to attend, we need to see among us, okay, who could do it and calendar it. So I had to go to 3 places last night, and I didn't know how I got from one to the other, but yet It was a phenomenal event to me. It was extremely well received, hard place to park. Food and etc. prepared. Lots of people. Our city council was there and city manager as well, and all that. That was a dream come true. Of course, I need some more information for the future if you guys could provide, or we could invite some of the artists to come and discuss, because it's an opportunity for artists to rent a place. It was very art-friendly, it was very artist-friendly, and it is a very good location. And being between the Atwater and being between, so the artist kind of community area. So excellent, excellent, excellent. It was a dream. We were waiting for something. And many, many rooms that they could rent it to the artists so they could work and prepare as their workshop as well. And it could be as a display area. So I was very happy. From what I heard, but I didn't hear from the people who were curating or programming, but from the artists, they said that they charge, I think, $1.50 per square inch. That was the thing, and there are lots of interesting agreements between the city and the artists as far as bringing more artists, bringing celebrities to our community, and etc. So I was extremely happy and excited with the event. Thank you. I'm done.
Commissioner Gregorian?
I have the very same comment about notification. I wish I knew. I'd received it yesterday morning, and I couldn't make it in the evening. And you probably received it the day before or something.
I sent it to you as soon as I heard about it, so I apologize. And I met the organizer, and I let him know in the future when they do it to let me know ahead of time so the commission could participate in a lot of the outreach and programming too.
That's exactly what I thought. So please don't take this as a criticism for you, but just generally, whoever, even the building owners, should let us know much in advance so that we can plan. I'm sorry that I missed because it was a very late notification. I would like to remind a lot of activities that are going on in our city. The Anzo Gallery has an opening exhibition on September 28th of a very world-known and respected painter, a good Glendale resident, a good friend of mine, Galust Gutel, who also has been participating in some of our programs in the past and helping us in several commissions and all that. So September 29th in Anzo Gallery I think it's 1125 South Central Avenue. And I think it's 1125 South Central Avenue. And then there is another exhibition opening in Silvana Gallery on October 6th. That is Ukrainian and Russian artists, and I've been there before. They have phenomenal artwork and phenomenal artists. So Silvana Gallery is doing a lot of hard work also. There is another exhibition coming in McCurcheon Gallery. They don't have the date set yet, but it will be sometime early October. That's also another solo artists exhibition, and I've seen the works. They're excellent. There are all kinds of other events, like the Caravan Dance Studio has a rehearsal and staging of a performance, etc. So I basically invite the community to follow these art events from all different sources that are possible, and hopefully, get this thing also encouraging the artists and improving the art scene in Glendale. One little comment that I have. Actually, it's a question, and I would like to be on the agenda maybe I'm not quite sure. I remember that at some point in the past, we gave some certificates of appreciation or awards or things like that to artists and art companies and art organizations with presence and accomplishments and contribution to the city art scene. That has somehow fizzled away. We don't do that in the last several months that I remember. And I'm not quite sure. Before, I think it was on the discretion of the chairman or a commissioner would recommend, and the chairman and the director would prepare that. I would like to see that happen. appreciation and awards are very important for artists. Quite often they put it in their resumes, they put it in their, they display in their portfolio, they display it in their studio, wherever. And I think it is very important. If we are really to support, we should consider redoing this again, certificate of appreciation to artists. And again, I don't want to open up a discussion now. I know it's not the place here, but maybe we can agendize it for next month, and hopefully we will even set some standards, set standards on who and how they would get it. It could still be the discretion of the chair, the recommendation of a commissioner, whatever, but I would like to see this to come back. I think it's very important for our art scene.
Could I make a suggestion here? Well, each one of us, we have our own friends in the community or people or galleries and artists that we go and see. It would be great, I don't know, we'll have it later on in our retreat, we'll get into the details of it. If we could introduce, let's say, if they have any brochures or information, it would be nice if we would connect them with Ned Vartanyan, who is now the staff who takes care of it. So she would be in touch with them and she would invite them and put them in the agenda if need be, or decide based on the agenda of the commission meeting in that 5-minute presentation. So they would come and sit here, because when the council meets, all the people who have businesses in the city, they come and sit here. We want them to be part of this. We don't want the empty room. We want the artists to feel that this is there. So please, if possible, we could all give our recommendations, and all the people who have events to contact Ms. Vartanyan, so Ms. Vartanyan could invite them. And then she would also be placed on the map with the artists and etc., so she could carry this process in a much smoother way. It was a suggestion.
I'm just going back to Mr. Gregorian's request. I'm guessing to get something agendized, it requires 2 or more commissioners. Or you could do it at the request of the chair. Okay.
Commissioner Lee?
Follow protocol.
Prepare yourself for next Saturday. We have our 11th annual Unity Festival, so please come. It'll be on Brand Boulevard on Saturday, September 29th from 2 to 7. It will be on Brand between California and Wilson. There'll be a stage show, which is free, and again, by popularity or popular demand, they'll be having food trucks. I won't say which one, so you got to come out and enjoy. Thank you.
And from there you can go to Anzo Gallery's exhibition, right?
Sounds good.
Yes.
I think we have a couple of staff comments. First up, I was at the Sealy event yesterday too for the ribbon cutting, and when I was there it was busy, but I know people who drove by at 10 p.m. and it was still packed and jammed with people, so thank you to Commissioner Derhovenestian for attending. I met some friends who are artists who were who I found out were displaying, and I didn't even know, but got to meet the marketing coordinator who was responsible for doing the art walk, and they want to make this an ongoing event. So I've asked them to be in touch with me so that I know when they're going to have another event, so that we could also outreach to some additional Glendale artists. We did have Glendale artists that were participating. Also, just to let you know, and because we're changing the format of the agenda, and actually last month I had realized to create some sort of a status report, so that when there is a request, to keep everybody, to remind everybody what's being requested. I'm going to just keep a status report that indicates proposed topics, agendized topics, ongoing, resolved topics, as well as follow-up. So things that could be followed up quickly, we will do that through our office, just to keep the minutes to a minimum, also to make sure that we're addressing all of the questions that you have. And then also the Diamond Awards, we need to finalize some of the details, as well as the final panel. From what I remember, Arlette, you're the contact, so I will work with you just to finalize the panel that will review the nominations, and we hope to bring all of those details in October, depending on what our agenda looks like.
Okay. Yes, Director Cleary?
I have an exciting announcement, and that is that we are moving forward with the design of a central library renovation. We expect to get bond money, California state bond money, which we weren't sure we were getting due to the collapse of the redevelopment agency. We're also pursuing something called the new market tax credits, and in order to qualify for that, we need to be on a very expedited schedule for the design and the cost estimates. So we are working diligently with Gruen Architects, who are the same architects who have been working on the Brand Library project. Our meetings started last week. We'll be meeting on a regular basis, and we've already started talking about all sorts of exciting ideas. Just very generally, the scope of the project is, of course, to update the library to meet the 21st century needs of our patrons, and also to, through design, really establish the library as an anchor to all that surrounds it, the Arts and Entertainment District, the Adult Recreation Center, Brand Boulevard. So we are very, very excited about being able to move forward. I think that there will be opportunities, depending on funding, for public art display, not only on our side, but also in the park. So, at some point, we will come back to you and discuss that. There will be a public process, and we will invite all of you and other community members to help us with achieving our goals and recognizing what your goals are. So once again, I am truly excited about the next steps at Central.
That's very exciting. I really am glad to hear that. And I reiterate my many times proposal. Could you please make sure that when you discuss these issues with the architect and you ask them for what we need, we kind of include display walls and improving the display lighting of all the areas that we can? I think that should be part of the renovation and 21st century project.
That's already been stated as a goal, that we have a way of more elegantly displaying art than what we have available to us right now.
And to do some temporary exhibitions and things, maybe we can use some of the halls and whatever with proper lighting. Lighting is the key.
We share a dream.
Excellent. I really appreciate that, Cindy.
I don't have much to report on because I've been practicing all day. So for the last month, I've been doing nothing but practicing. So having said that, next item.
Item 7, written communications.
Do we have any? I'm praying for the day that we have some. Next item is adjournment at 8, and so we are adjourned.